Welcome to another episode of Shop Talk.
Welcome.
We have a special guest today, or actually a few. We have Nath Wynn, the BILSTEIN tuner, a.k.a. Nathan. His new name's Nath Wynn because that's what he does. And we have the very special guest here, Doug Mittag. Very nice to see you, Doug.
I don't know how to take the special part, but
oh, you're very special. Very special. So we're meeting here today. He just finished a brutal KOH race, and he's about to go into another brutal race over there at
Mint 400.
Mint 400.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we had a good showing at King of Hammers, and got the car all dialed in. It's actually down here at BILSTEIN getting a little bit more dialed in. We're going to do some testing and be a little bit more prepared, and hopefully be able to get to that top spot.
Box, yeah.
Yep.
Very cool. Very cool.
So
between you and Nathan, you guys have got that car functioning pretty well, huh?
Yeah, that's the guy behind the shock right there.
Yeah, I mean, well, a couple of years we're leading it in the last lap, the Mint, and had a few issues, but we got it all sorted out now. So
yeah.
So what's it like being in that car, man? Outside of the oxycodone and the good BILSTEIN Black Hawks, what keeps you going?
Wait, what do you mean? That's what I live for, man. Racing. No, it's been good, man. I've been busy, with work and luckily, had a good race at King of Hammers and, been putting in work. And like Nathan said, we led the Mint 400 2 years ago when we raced. And, we led the first couple laps and then we had, some issues, some flats, racing stuff, Yeah. It's always good until it's not. But,
yeah.
You had some Humvees in your way, you were saying?
Yeah, it's an interesting race just because they have, it's great we have so many cars on the track, but, we had, we have military guys that are out there, and they do their best to get out of the way, but some of the sections are so tight that, you catch them and it's a bottleneck for, at their pace until they have a good, safe way to get out of the way. But, that'll last 5 miles sometimes, and so 5-10 miles, and you just got to deal with it. Hopefully the guys behind you have to deal with the same stuff.
Yeah, clock's still ticking, but if a guy's in front of that guy and that's the lead guy that you're trying to catch,
yep, exactly.
That makes it pretty crappy.
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of part of desert racing. Coming from short course, it's like no excuses. It's everybody's on the same track, and you drive as hard as you can. But now desert, there's so many variables. To have a flawless race and win is really hard. And luckily, we got one last year.
This Brock Hager seems to be lucky though.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it all luck. That kid's a driver for sure.
Yeah, but he's having spotless races. Right? No flats, no failures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it all has to come together in desert racing. You got to have some luck on your side for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what's up with shop life, man? Like you just told me you have 11 cars.
Yeah, we're building, we've been building the Pro R for a while, and I have all the way up to 22 Pro Rs sold. So I just finished, we're working on number 15 for Pro Rs, and we have 5 or 6 more Pro Rs pre-sold, and then we have 4 or 5 of the new Can-Am Maverick Rs pre-sold as well. So busy.
Talk about this 28-day Ampudia car.
Yeah, that was
holy smokes.
We'd been designing it on CAD. Me and my buddy Colby, after hours weekends for a while. And Podium came to us after King of Hammers 2024, 3, whatever. Anyways, they came and talked to me, and they're like, we want to build a really competitive Can-Am Maverick R, and we want you to do it. And at this point, I'd never even really looked at one. So we started designing one on CAD and stuff, and, it took us a long time, like I said, whenever we had free time, which wasn't very often, and came down to a month before the race, and it was like, all right, tubes are cut, go. And, we made it happen. It was definitely difficult, but it came out really good, a lot of positive feedback, and like I said,
beautiful.
I have six deposits on
Mav Rs
since it's been dropped, so everybody likes it. And
what about this race car you built for your buddy on air springs?
Oh, RJ.
Yeah. That thing is crazy.
That thing's insane. He came up with that idea. We actually had our car number 1 at the dunes maybe 2 years ago, and he was like, and we were at the hill one night. And he's like, dude, let's do opening. He's like, let's build an opening door car on airbags that can drop to the floor. He's like, it'll be the coolest thing ever. And here we are a year later.
And that's a high horsepower car, right? So.
Yeah, he's got it's got like 560 horsepower to the wheels. So
What gearbox is that thing?
it's got a Fortin 4-speed, one of the old gearboxes that was in one of my old Profiles. Yeah, we had like a couple. My dad had a couple laying around, 4-speeds, and so he mocked it all. He handled a lot of that stuff. Him and his guys handled like a lot of that stuff. We just built the chassis and made the doors and stuff like that. And his guys like kind of mounted the transfer case, and there's drive shafts, and yeah, it's pretty insane build. I got to drive it. It's pretty phenomenal.
So on the Mav Rs that the people are interested in getting, or the deposits you have, are they doing the double shocks in the back, or are they not?
So basically we built it per and Podi's request to have the bypasses in the back. Some people, like a lot of, like I have 2 customers that are Can-Am guys, and they will not be allowed, I think, to run that, just because that's not how the car's sold. It's going to be more for the person that is funding the thing and wants to go just have the that extra control, I guess. But to me personally, I don't think that's where the sport should go. I think that the shocks are so good right now that you don't need to go spend that extra $10,000. Like we have our shocks so dialed, I don't know how much of an advantage it really is, and you're adding the weight and stuff like that. So
yeah, and it takes away kind of from the shock bores a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Yeah, like you guys are building something that bolts onto everybody's car. Like my shock that's on my race car will bolt on to an average Pro R. Like you bolt it on. It's very easy. Where the Can-Am that we built has the bypasses, but it's like that you can't bolt that on any other car. That's gonna take a lot of money and fabrication and stuff like that. Where it's not
completely different chassis and mounts.
Chassis, you had to burn all the tabs in or the whole shock housing in the rear for that.
Exactly. So it becomes a lot. Not only the shocks are more expensive, and
it's an extra 50 pounds.
Not only more expensive, it's like the sport has, and I think I had a conversation with you. I called you one day and was talking about the Podium car, and I think eventually it will head there, right? I mean, these cars are getting so much more so much more faster. That doesn't make sense. They're getting way faster.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting more travel, more usable travel in them. Eventually, I think that the market will head to that direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
It might not be classified as UTV anymore. It might be a version of a Class 1 car or something, but nonetheless, I think the faster you get this thing, like what is a Mav R can go on a lake bed, 115, 118 miles an hour?
Yeah, I've heard 115 all day.
But so now you're going 115 miles an hour and you hit this little G out, you need a lot of damping control, right? Mm-hmm. So will one shock do it now? I think one shock will do it at 115 miles an hour, but when these things start getting to 125, 130 miles an hour, you know what I mean? And then all this shaft velocity picks up and you're 5-6 meters a second.
Cars are getting heavier.
Cars are getting heavier.
But that's the downside is the cars and the motors and the transmissions are really kind of designed for a UTV.
Right.
If you start getting too far off, you're going to start burning all that stuff up.
Cole Clark, 465 horsepower out of that basically stock 4-cylinder turbo car. He turboed it, right?
Yep.
But he's still running
that car, and he was hanging with 700, 800 horsepower cars. I mean, I think there is a replacement for displacement these days, but nonetheless, the faster you get, the higher shaft velocity you're going to see, right? So I think at sooner or later, it's just inevitable, right?
But the thing is like the bypass has been stagnant forever. Mm-hmm. Where you go to a Black Hawk or, a competitor of a Black Hawk, that's like cutting edge, right? It's like the UTV class is made it necessary for shock companies to stay cutting edge with a single shock.
Yep.
And then if it's kind of a cop out to me.
I agree with that too. Like the technology that the engineering you guys have done inside the Black Hawk is so much. I mean, a bypass is a bypass. Like, what else are you gonna do with it? Mm-hmm. Where you guys are like changing the game for a single shock.
Yeah, and we never would have had that opportunity. It never would have dawned on us.
Doug Mittag.
If it wasn't for Doug. So now you can.
So just to let all viewers know, Doug Mittag is the pioneer between him and Nathan have pioneered this whole Black Hawk race shock. Like they started from the bottom. Now we're they really started from the bottom, right? They started with this shock just being a production, came out of a box as a production shock. And then,
well, Doug was on it before we even came out with any fitments.
Right.
Well, that was the thing that I thought was actually really cool about the development is like we really raced on that thing for a year.
Well, man, you raced with 60 millimeter
hard.
fronts.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's
Remember?
changed. The shock has changed, and what's sold to the consumer now is so much different than what we started from, just from trial and error.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
a lot different.
You know, breaking stuff and being like, all right, so then you change that one part and you got to re-engineer the whole shock just to flow more oil or whatever, you know, the changes.
And right now, if we're at a point right now where Doug Mittag's not breaking it, we believe in that.
Yeah.
We believe in that shock.
I said from the beginning, I'm like, we probably could sell these things right now and nobody's going to bend them, but like doing 70 down Barstow, Maine, like the biggest, worst thing you could ever hit, and nobody's going to take their personal car down.
Or
like
have the guts
we would break a shock and be like, okay, redesign. Like, you know what I mean? Like they probably were fine 2 years ago, but now we have something that we trust completely. We could literally do whatever you want to.
Yeah, they've been holding up good.
When we started the project, it was like I didn't have the respect for the cars. And also in that process, the cars got a lot faster because that was the Can-Am X3 and then the Turbo S were the big cars at that time. Then they came out with a Pro R that's way faster, right?
And they came out with the Mavar.
That's way faster. But even like
that's what I'm saying. What's next? I mean, these things are going to be going 100. These two things are going to be trailing behind a spec truck on lake bed soon.
Yeah.
But we had the X3 and we were like, when the shock needs to be aluminum, right? We can't have steel. You know, so there's a lot of developments that we forced on engineers from product management where they're like, yeah, I can't do that, can't do this, can't do that. But we were like, here's what you need to have. You need to have all these elements. So they put it together. You know, it's a lightweight car, right? 3-inch shock, like it'll be great. But then there's all these little things that started popping up.
I remember
because you drove so fast, right?
I remember when you trailered the first car to Off-Road Expo.
Oh, that was
and
fantastic.
It wasn't even finished, man. And it's like I had to perch up out there for a little bit because there were so many people just coming in the booth. Whose car is that? What car is that? Is that the Mittag car? Is that the new Mittag car? You know, so I actually hung out there for a little bit and was answering questions that I had no idea if I was correct or not. Go figure. They couldn't challenge me, right? But yeah, that car out there drew so much attention. And now it's like, you had maybe a couple jobs lined up at the time, and now you're booking 11, 15 cars at a time.
Yeah, I think I sold my first car that weekend to the Krebs, were the first customer I had, like, to build another car, like, similar.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was like the first weekend. Yeah, I had the same thing. Like so many people like come up and like, dude, this is amazing. Like, congratulations. Just because it was kind of the first of its kind. Like, people were building nice cars, like good craftsmanship and stuff. But like,
that was next level.
To completely change the design of where the fuel cell is and where we put the seats and everything. Was
everyone loves your car. They're so low. They're so low center of gravity. That's just squatty.
Yeah,
it's funny.
They look like me.
It's funny how people think it's like the car's lower than anybody
it's not.
else's car.
Yeah,
but it's a stock platform. It's just
I get so many people that are like, you
layout.
guys' ride height is too low. Like that's why, like like you guys are, whatever. Like they'll be like, how do you get away with like such a low ride height? I'm like, it's not. It's just the car is so low. Like you think that it's that. Like everybody thinks that a ride height. That's how we get it low. Is just like bring it to the floor because we're short course guys or whatever. I'm like, no. Like you guys have no idea. We have the same ride height. We have 18 inches of ride height.
The seats are on the floor and the chassis is just.
The chassis is just a foot
like
shorter.
Top, you know what I mean? So it's
And the car's not wider.
Maybe you should educate all the guys that commentate for KOH.
Yeah.
Well, the last Legacy Parker race in 24, you won that race, and then that's when Nate Hale showed up and
put cash in your hand.
Yeah, he wanted to buy your car.
Yeah, exactly.
And that guy's cooking. I mean, he was first place in the last Legacy race until he blew his motor.
Dude, I have a lot of fun racing, but like honestly, now that I'm building chassis and stuff, like I get so excited.
Oh yeah.
Like I refreshed the timing, and I had 3 cars there that I built. It was Nate Hale, our first car that's on the wall right there.
Gonzalez
was supposed to be my second car that I sold to him. That was his first race in the car. And then car number 4, which was
Jacob.
Ian Kennedy owns the car, but Jacob was driving it. His crew chief, like his mechanic, first time driving the car and stuff, and they were top 3. Like, and I was just like, no way, you know, like that was such a cool feeling to me. I was like, holy, you know.
Did Gonzalez finish?
Yeah, they all. I think I jinxed it because I sent it to everybody that works for me, works with me and for me and stuff. And I'm like, good job, guys. You know, like this is awesome. And then right after, everybody started having issues. Gonzalez lost the alternator belt, so he was down for 30 minutes. He came back to finish second. He was 30 minutes behind. He made up. He finished. Fast. He made up. I think he was like 2 minutes behind the leader. So he's 30 minutes down, and put 30 minutes on him, and still finished second.
That one still breaks my heart.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, and then Nate Hill was leading before that, and blew up a motor.
Yeah, I was watching the live stream of Nate's, and I was like, oh man,
he was about to send a text.
Yeah, I was just putting everyone's name on this long text to watch his live stream.
Uh-huh.
I was watching, all of a sudden,
so it was you.
They just pull up, boom, like
yeah,
engine blew, and I'm like deleting it. Oh
yeah. Hey, Nate's fast.
Yeah,
that car is working.
Yeah,
Nate's fast.
That car is working.
Well, we got a lot of testing on that car. Mm-hmm. You got things dialed.
Yeah.
I messaged him on Instagram because he was showing his new pre-runner, and he powder coated all the tubes gold. I'm like, oh, perfect. Did you do that to match the upcoming reservoir color? He's like, I wish I never bought the ultimate.
Yeah, no, he was ripping, and then same thing. The Ian car, Jacob was driving. He was in 3rd place, and the header blew apart. As I was saying, like with desert racing, there's so many variables. You could have your car dialed this time, and a header blows apart. Like
I mean,
that everybody else is running.
Look at Schmitty. He did the Parker 400. After the second lap, he was 2 minutes in front of the next guy.
Yep.
And I was watching the race. I think you were watching the race, and we called each other. I was in Virginia, and we're like, 3 miles away from the finish line. 3rd overall, first in class. Belt goes. So he takes 2nd place.
The desert is your biggest adversary.
Oh, man.
Oh, for sure.
You got to respect it, right?
Yeah.
Well, you got to just, I think.
You have to respect
I think Nathwin
said
it the best. I mean, like, you got to race 80% of a race 100% of the time, and not 100% of the race 80% of the time. That's your goal.
What is that again?
You race 80% 100% of a race, rather than trying to race 100% 80% of the race. You got to make the car live. If the car doesn't live, you're not going to win a race.
Yeah, that's the toughest part. Like, even we knew we lost time on Hager at the start of the King of Hammers. I think we qualified 6th. He qualified up on the front row. And, like, getting through everybody and stuff like that, I think we're 4 minutes behind him. And then the next lap, we made up a minute. And we ended up being, like, the closest I think we got was, like, 2 minutes behind him. But at that point, it was still, like, we were going, like, I was still having to, pass some people. But, like, for the most part, like, it was like, all right, like, it's his pace versus my pace. And he must have got information, too, at the same time. Because, like, when we got to 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, he picked it up. And, like, that's, like, where we stayed from there on, But I knew I was pushing really hard. And it's like, I could do all this and just be pushed just a little bit harder and lose it all and we don't finish. Or, I give it what I think is my 90% and hopefully something happens. Because it's like, it's like, what do you go home with a DNF or something like that? It's so hard, like, mentally to just.
So you start talking to God, you're like, get that guy in front of me.
Yeah, but at the same point, you're like, screw it. I didn't come here for 2nd place. Yeah. I've got
that's
second
the Baja
place.
state of mind.
Yeah.
That's the Baja
That's what
state
happened
of
to me at the Baja 1000 is
Right.
I was like, I'm like,
Baja state of mind.
yeah, I was, we were doing great. I mean, we had a couple of issues that set us back and, like, weird ones. Car got bad fuel mileage that we didn't expect. We ran out of gas. We had to get fuel from luckily a local was right by there, gave us whatever. We don't even know what kind of fuel it was, but we put it in the car just enough to start it back up and get to our next fuel stop. And
That
we
was
had
lucky.
some issues, to where it's like kind of a bummer, but you're like, wait a minute, we're still in 4th place overall out of, I don't know how many people were there. There was quite a bit of entries at that race, Like, all right, we still got this, and we caught one of the cars I built, Mike Caffro, and we were going back and forth. We were having a really fun battle. I was having so much fun. Like we were going back and forth, and we caught him, and it just started getting wet. Like a little dewy, so it wasn't dusty. So I was like, finally, I can like reel him in and pass him. Like this is the chance I have. So we're like hauling the mail, and we get right behind him, and I went to bump him. I was like, we have too much speed on him. Like we're just gonna pass him. Like no, not bump him and mess something up. Well, cattle guard was right there. We ended up wrecking both. I wrecked both of our cars, and both of us didn't finish. But it's like that, like all I thought I was gonna be able to do was get past him, and I was like, all right, that's another spot, timing wise and. Just like it can change that quick, so it's so hard mentally to like be like, all right, be patient, or like do what it takes right now to make this win happen. And it's just like such a,
but
a fine line.
Neither would have been wrong. So if you would have paced behind him and got a safer path, I mean, neither what you did was wrong. It's just a calculated risk.
Yep, exactly.
It is what it is. So what's the deal with short course, man? Are you gonna go back and dominate that series, or what?
We built a car. For Ronnie Anderson, and it was actually really fun, and the car did good. He got third. I mean, he's a great driver, but it like
that Pro 4 car?
That Mini, it's a Pro R.
Okay. Oh, yeah. That last year was its first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I've only built one. Like his is the only one, and I'm like, God, it'd be kind of fun to, to build one and go race. It's such a competitive class. Anything.
Yeah. He was the only one that was pacing with those Yamaha cars.
Yep, exactly, at Crandon, which is hard. Like that's a horsepower track, and like they didn't have any testing for clutching really or anything, and he went out and did really good, like first time in the car. So it made me think, I'm like, there's one race this year at Glen Helen that's kind of local, and it'd be fun to go maybe do 2 or 3 races because that's what I grew up doing.
But are you ever going to get behind a high horsepower truck again?
I don't know. If you give me some money.
You can count on that.
Sponsored by Junior.
Yeah.
No. And some time. Like I said, like the business thing is really consuming and stuff, and just like funding to go back east is really, it's hard. You got to have a lot of people that did it here when it was Lucas Oil, went back there and did it. They moved their whole shops, like they're living back there now. Yeah. They're making it happen.
But I mean, you're not just dragging a truck and a trailer; you're dragging a whole support team.
Yeah, and we were spending our whole summers out there. So like our business and all of our tools and everything got left here, and our shop that we're still paying for is here, but we're out there renting a different shop, working out of a different shop, and it's really hard to do that. I would love to, but I'm having a lot of fun with the desert stuff, and it's it's local and it's a good time.
A lot bigger opportunity to build more cars, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
As a professional racer, how is it? How do you stagger your work life with your race life? I mean, with 11 cars being built right now, it's like, how do you manage that? How is that manageable?
Yeah.
To prepare for a race, but yet you got 11 cars that are paying you.
Yep. Yeah,
good money to be there to do them.
And that's the tough part that I'm like, that's my biggest like challenge that I'm trying to overcome right now is finding good help. Like right now I have my dad, I have Travis, I have, and those are obviously great help. And I have some part-time guys that, have normal jobs and they come and help me out on weekends, and like they're really good welders and stuff like that. So I'm making it work right now. Like like my part-time guys don't go to the race with me. So like when I'm gone, like at least they're getting something done. But just finding good guys that I can trust when I go to the races for a week, that I'm not getting set back, a week for everybody's timelines and stuff like that. It is tough. That's like one of my biggest challenges.
That got to be
it's
tough.
Like,
because most guys that race, when they turn that into a business, the racing eventually goes away.
Yeah.
I mean,
at the end of the day, that's where you make your money, right?
Yeah, inevitably it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But so coming from that space of being a business owner now and a professional racer, what kind of advice would you give people that are looking to do that? Like, because every racer thinks that the best thing to do is open a shop and build cars. Because I'm in a winning car.
Yep.
I built it, so I know that I can build everyone else winning cars. What's your advice to those people if they want to continue their race, going down that path of being a professional racer? Would you suggest them getting into that, or?
Yeah, it's hard, you know.
for fun.
Obviously, if I could race for a living and that's all I had to worry about, man, that'd be awesome. But at the end of the day, you know, we live in California, and it's really tough, you know. So I think it's an awesome tool to promote your stuff, especially if you can go get on the box and stuff. I mean, I come home from a race and I have 4 or 5 like people that are ready to give me deposits. Like it's that good. Like it helps you that much, but you're also it's a lot to think about. You know, find a good wife that's not going to leave you.
Yeah, 100%.
And helps
that
you.
actually married you during this whole thing.
Yeah. That, you know, like understands and she alone helps me so much with all the stuff, because it's not a big program.
Stuff,
like I mean, she usually handles like getting everything ready for the races, you know, getting pit books ready, like all that kind of stuff. Like it's a lot of work, and just like having a good support team and trying to find good employees. You know, I would say that's the biggest thing. If I could find a really good employee where I can leave and he manages everything when I'm gone, like that would be awesome, you know, because the best of both worlds, like if you can get it all to work, it's great, but it is really hard.
Hard work's hard.
It sounds like
workers are hard to find.
You really need the to go out and win the races or get on the box to sell some cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of races, what's that strategy for the 400 the men?
Yeah.
What
are we doing? We're you know,
this won't air until after the men, so
usually, you know,
no one's gonna get no secrets.
You know, we got some stuff we're working on. We actually have the car here. I don't think the race cars ever came to the BILSTEIN facility, but Nathan's got some ideas, and we're making some pretty big changes just to help with, you know, we're not far off, obviously. You know, we're only 2 minutes off of a win at probably the most competitive race I think that's happened so far. You know, the factory Polaris team was at King of Hammers. Every Can-Am guy was at King of Hammers. Like, everybody was at King of Hammers. It's a short race. There wasn't a lot of I mean, there was some attrition, don't get me wrong, but it was only 240 miles, 260 miles. So, like, you really didn't have, like, a ton of time for stuff to go wrong. So it was everybody's best of the best was there, and we were 2 minutes off.
If you have a flat, you're going to be hurting.
Exactly. Like, it came down to, you had a flat, you have, like, really any issue, like, you were out of the race. So it was very competitive. But we have some things that we think we're going to improve on for shock stuff. And, you know, there's no pre-running, which is kind of nice for somebody like me that doesn't have a ton of free time to go pre-run and stuff.
So everybody's in the same category. No one's pre-running.
Yeah, exactly.
And the people that have been racing the Mint for 10 years and kind of got notes. And
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, like you said, the course changes after every race. You know what I mean? So...
Yeah, the overall layout of the course is very similar, but like the terrain will, you know, get choppy or get, you know, rocks will move into places and stuff like that. But I mean, it's a very challenging race, and there's a lot of what was I going to say? What's when cars break? What's that word called?
Attrition.
There's a lot of attrition at the Mint 400, just because there's so much. Like, there's high speed big rollers, which I think we're covered on, but you know, there's tight technical rock sections that, like I said, the 2 years ago when I raced, I got 3 flat tires, and I have a good tire. It's just like, you know, you take that chance to pass somebody because there's a slow car in the way. Mm-hmm. There's so many variables at the Mint 400 that it's just like having every duck in a row. We got a good team. We got good parts at every single pit. You know, like we're ready for it. I know we upped our game. We got fuel towers. We're quicker fueling now. So we're trying to do what it takes, you know, and
I don't think it's not a bad testament to any manufacturer that has a failure in a race, in a desert race. Like you can't say that BFG is not a good tire because you got a flat, or I'm gonna go look for another tire manufacturer because I got a flat. Like, shit happens out there, man. Mm-hmm. Like, just because you bend a shaft on a shock, it doesn't mean that shock's not the best shock you can put on there. It's just you bent that shaft, right? Or you bent a trailing arm, or you bent a link, or whatever it may be. It's like, people don't realize how intense these courses are, man. And
the Mint 400 is probably one of the toughest races to finish.
400 miles.
I would say so, for sure.
It's an additional 200 miles over King of the Hammers, right?
Yeah,
that's like
substantial. Supposedly more brutal terrain.
Yeah, it's got like every terrain, but it is brutal. All of it's brutal, but they have every terrain. Like the worst, gnarliest whoop sections, they have the, you know, sharpest rocks. In train track, like you're stuck in a train track and there's sharp rocks. It's like, well, you gotta, you know, do what you got, you know.
You got to reach 90% through all that shit.
Exactly.
The ruts are super deep, so they're slapping skid plate like constant.
Yep. You go through, they run us through, they call it, what's that? Like, it's like the garbage, what is it called? Like the dump or something like that. So there's trash and nails and beer bottle. Like, you literally run through this stuff and you're just like, I just hope there's not a nail in this line, you know what I mean? But I don't know what you can do about it. So there's so much that can happen at that race, that, can take you out.
That's not a testimony of any manufacturer's part, whether it's BILSTEIN, whether it's BFG, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, like
these things are this is how you test. This is how you.
I mean, this is the front line of developing parts right now, for sure, 100%. Like tires, shocks, like we are like increasing our speed, like our average speeds, like every race is like incredible. Like I think we averaged at King of Hammers, I think we averaged like 62 miles an hour.
Oh my God.
Are you kidding me?
Average. And there's like the whole first 20 miles, it's only a 60-mile loop. The first 20 miles of every loop that we did was straight up rocks, like this, like slow 20 mile an hour. So like we're doing 100 and my car would do only about 103 on the straightaways and stuff like that. But like, yeah. But I mean, I heard other cars were doing 110. I heard, Hager and them were doing like 107. So it's like just that little, like every time we're getting better. So now it's like, all right, we got to pick up our speed. Like we got to be doing 107, like, or else,
King of the Hammers looks like it had some big, like, G's.
Yeah.
Seemed like that was
yeah, they're definitely, like, coming into town, Hammertown, there's always that section.
Oh, yeah.
Changes. That's the roughest section. But, like, like that, like, we're jumping, like, in qualifying, and even during the race, we're, like, doubling those. Where last year, we're, just, all four on the ground. And, we were still running competitive then, but now it's like we're literally having to jump these things and take more risks than we did just 1 year ago.
So Nathan, what is it like tuning one of these race cars, man? What is it? I mean, not aside from the rewarding side, because you see him, you work out there with Doug for days, you know what I mean? And you see him go through Barstow, Maine at, 60 miles an hour and it looks sloppy, and then you guys get it to where that car's flat. I mean, what does it take to do all that, man? What is it? What's
nothing? He sits on the couch most of the
time. just a lot of testing, pulling shocks apart, and I mean studying, watching those slow video, watching the tires move, and then you just try a little change and see if it improves, and then you just kind of take notes off of that, and
that's pretty scary too, because you can definitely go overboard on a shock. You can definitely, and to keep that fine line of making the shock usable through its whole travel and not overvalving, like that's all in here, right? That's all in the brain, right? So you go too much and the shock's in a hydraulic, it'll never bottom. You go too little, then he's going to be blowing through his travel. It's like, you got to be money.
Yeah,
and everyone's seen the Doug Mittag versus I'm not going to say his name, video on Race Desert. So that takes a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the drivers, they don't want to feel all that little sharp stuff too, so you're trying to like
tune that out,
get that little smoothness there, then have a shock that doesn't bottom out. And
right.
And I think that's what helps Nathan too, is like he races, he's raced his whole life and stuff too, so he understands, I think, you know what I mean? Like a lot of the good shock tuners like are part of racing. They're in the cars. They know what we're talking about when it's like when somebody's never been in a car and they see it go over the whoops and it's like, yeah, that's awesome, but like, dude, I don't want it to beat me up for 200 miles. Like the chatter, the small little bumps, and most people are gonna be like, all right, dude, shut up. But he understands, and like that's why our shock is so like versatile, is like he can tune it with the Black Hawk. Like you have that bottom out control, you have the rebound to mess with. Like he's got so many tools.
And we'll speak on the technology for a minute. We have 4 zones that you can revalve, right? And all that.
There's 5 stacks of valving in there.
Oh, 5.
5 different valve stacks.
So you got RCO, JCO, main piston, DSA. What's the 5th?
Well, I mean, just compression and.
Oh yeah. But actual valvable. There's 4 ranges of actual that you can go in there and revalve. But
there's 4 pistons to revalve, and
so
5 adjustments.
5 adjustments, 4 pistons you can.
4 adjustments, but the one on the top kind of has a dual.
Yeah, but the JCO bleed that can be that reacts heavily on how that JCO is valved, right?
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, we got the internal bump stop.
and you got the rebound control. Yeah. So there's so much that can be done to, like you said, you just said something really important. Like most people would say, yeah, that low velocity shit, you're just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But we have a shock that you don't have to shut up.
Yeah.
Because if you know what you're doing, you can go in there and address that concern.
Yep.
Right? So you can go after the main piston, or if it's something that you want a little more control on the top out, right? You can go and do the RCO. You can do the JCO for better bottom out control. You can do the DSA for, to increase or decrease that,
the high speed,
Yeah.
big holes, and I mean it's
endless.
you can spend weeks.
There's no limit to the range. You know how some people say, yeah, there's 4 adjusters, and you can capture from A to Z, but this one there's like no limit. If you can't tune this shock to someone's feel, then there's not a shock out there that you can. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, even the springs are a huge player,
Yeah.
You got to get the springs right.
Spring stops,
Just everything is just like
preload, all that makes a difference.
But for the Mint, we're trying a lot of different things to try to make the car fast, and the deep rutted. We're getting more ride heights, stiffen up the bump stops, so the car's not gonna like blow through the travel and start hitting skid plate when you still got like 4 inches of shock shaft left. Yeah. We're trying to use all that shock where it can just stay in it. So hopefully it works. We're trying some new stuff for sure.
That's because the holes are bigger in Mint versus the last race, right?
Yeah.
And more constant, like.
Yeah.
Well, those ruts are so deep, we can't use the internal bump stop because.
But it's just like Tyler Schmidt. He's like, when he raced that 400 race, when he blew the belt 3 miles from the finish line.
In first place.
He was in first place when he blew the belt. But he's like, in fact, Evan called me and said, hey, while you're at KOH, talk to Doug Mittag, see how fast he can get that car going, because he was topping out at 90 miles an hour. So all the flat straightaway stuff, he was getting gapped, right? He would lose 4, 5, 6 positions. And he said because of the tunability of that shock, he would gain 6 or 7 once it started getting rough. He was able to just pick them off in the rough stuff because he was wide open.
Yeah, definitely an advantage.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's another amazing part to me is like, I'm always like, leave it. Like, it feels good. Like, let's leave it. And Nathan will like find a way to make it better. I'm like, all right, now leave it. And it just like keeps going.
It's almost like a challenge for him.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Exactly. So
it's not good till it's Nathan approved.
Yeah.
It used to be super stressful because we were having little shock issues at the beginning. Oh, yeah. So I'm just like, oh my god.
It's inevitable though, right? It's inevitable.
And I mean, Doug pushes it hard, so it's like, who knows what's going to happen next, and it's like stressful. And then now I'm feeling pretty confident, like not worried about the shock too much anymore.
You can actually hear you in the Plaster City video when he was going through that trophy truck section at 80 miles an hour. You were like, because that was all the Nath Wynn concern, man. He was like, I wouldn't. I'm like, I called him. I'm like, dude, how fast was he going? He's like, man, I don't know. I was stressed out.
It's crazy when you're at that level. There's little tweaks that need to happen.
Yeah, but you got to have a guy like this
Exactly.
that's willing to get in and just put it to the test, right? Like I wouldn't do that.
That's what racing does.
I wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it.
No.
You wouldn't go through that trophy truck section at 80 miles an hour. I wouldn't go in there in a trophy truck at 80 miles an hour, let alone a side-by-side.
I just want to watch.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I want to be a cheerleader, bro. Give me the pom-poms.
No, but it's like just little things. Like we had a 22 mil shaft, 7/8, and then just go into a 1-inch shaft.
Solved a ton of problems.
Yeah. But it's only.
But
I'm not an engineer, but I'm like, come on.
Right.
There's got bigger problems than that, right?
And then he tried the inch and an eighth and realized it was hydraulicing. Couldn't get the car to use all its back travel.
Out.
Yeah, spitting O-rings out.
But you're like a little diameter
but
difference.
People don't realize that. You got 22 mil to 25 mil, and it's 28 mil on the inch and an eighth, right? So the 28 mils bending, or the 22 mils bending. We can't do it with the 28 millimeter because it's hydroing. It's blowing sills out of the reservoir, right?
Yeah.
Because it can't displace the oil. Now, money, bingo. There's a 25 mil.
Well, some of the issues were not issues, but things they changed were like just how deep the O-ring grooves are on the caps.
Yeah,
or
drilling the bridge for more flow, or
weird, weird stuff when you're at the top level that you're just.
This is proof when you think you've got a shock that's a winner, you probably don't.
You need a winner.
If he hasn't tested it and he hasn't tuned it, you're probably behind the curve.
I mean, some of them spikes are just, you're going 80, 100, and you just hit one of those 1 foot wall in a whoop, and that tire hits it at full droop. I mean, there's just a lot going on with the scrub on the tire.
Oh, yeah.
Just
so Evan told me to ask you when you were in the pre-runner, the Pro R pre-runner at KOH, there was an oh shit moment.
Big time.
He said he thought that he wouldn't live through it, and he said you made a sound like you thought you wouldn't live through it either.
Yeah.
And he said when you guys hit it, it was like butter.
Didn't even. Yeah, we dropped.
And there was what? How much tuning went into those? I mean, Tyler threw a tune at it. You guys turned a little bit.
I didn't even touch that car.
Yeah, you didn't touch it.
I just got it.
But Evan turned a few knobs on it and got it. Talk about that. And this is a big 4-seat car. This is like a sand limo.
Yeah, it's a big car.
Well, it's a Pro R.
Four-seater. That's a big car, dude. That's like a F-350 wheelbase.
Yeah, they're like it's 130.5.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, he never been on this trail, and I get in, we're just cruising. He's just like holding it maybe at like 60 and just hitting anything that was coming his way. And I'm just like, all right, it's taking it. And then all of a sudden we come up to like a, 6-8 foot drop off, and then it went right back up. And we literally went in that at 50 miles an hour. And I was just like, "Oh boy, this is gonna be bad."
Yeah, that's where he said. He said, all I heard was Nathan say, "Oh boy," and he says when it went off of like a 8-foot drop off into.
And it took it. It didn't even get upset.
Yeah, he says
it didn't hurt.
But he said he braced for the worst too. He's like, because he says that he thought he had ran that road, but he didn't. It wasn't the road he had ran.
It was like 2 trails over or something.
Right. And he's like, when I saw it, I had no choice because I guess you guys were doing 40. And when he finally saw it, he pinned it. And he says, dude, he's like, when it was all over, I was like, we're alive.
Yeah, I thought he was going to check up, but he just stayed in it. And I was just like,
yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He's like, talk to Nathan, because all I heard was, oh boy. Yeah, I mean, that's just a testament to these shocks, you know what I mean? And what, even when not a ton of time has been put in them, and I know Tyler and Evan, they're very good at these shocks, probably not at your level yet, but they're at the point where those kind of situations, had he had the stock Walker Evans on, what would have happened?
Oh, that would have been...
He probably wouldn't have been going
probably
60 in the first.
Race.
He wouldn't have been going 60 in the first place.
No,
yeah.
You probably no, and you wouldn't have been going to Mint 400 in second place. You know what I mean? It would have the car would have folded, dude. I mean, something would have broke, right? There's a lot to these vehicles that you don't realize how important each component are, and how you make them work well together. It's like sometimes you'll get the shock where you'll put 32 psi on the tire and it's money. You retune the shock and you're like, oh, let me drop it to 28 psi and it's money. So like conjunction, working with things in conjunction wins races, right? And knowing that, hey, I just went into all these shocks, I revalved them, they're a little heavy, let me drop some air pressure because these Maxxis tires can take it. They can take 30 psi instead of 33 psi. And then you got a money situation, right? Because now that's taking a little more deflection and taking the fill out of the shock. So it's like everything working together makes it perfect. High-end components doing high-end things for high-end people. I like it.
Yes, sir. Just getting it all aligned is the tough part.
Yeah. Or getting away from work to go race, that's the tougher part.
Yeah.
So anyone that wants to start the GoFundMe for Doug Mittag. All right, guys, thanks for joining us on another episode with our very special guests here. And we look forward to talking to you soon.